Hello. This is a really memorable book in that it is the memoirs or memories. It is the memories of a Holocaust rescuer. So these are memories that she had, and she related to the writer here, Jennifer Armstrong, but Irene was really this person in this story. And when you read it, you will see how strong and courageous she really was. Let's just read the introduction here. You must understand that I did not become a resistance fighter, a smuggler of Jews, a defier of the SS and the Nazis all at once. One's first steps are always small. I had begun by hiding food under a fence. Through this intimate and compelling memoir, we are witness to the growth of a hero. Irene Gutt was just a girl when the war began, 17, a Polish patriot, a student nurse, a good Catholic girl. As the war progressed, the soldiers of two countries stripped her of all she loved, her family, her home, her innocence, but the degradations only strengthened her will. She began to fight back. Irene was forced to work for the German army, but her blonde hair, her blue eyes, and her youth brought her the relatively safe job of waitress in an officer's dining room. She would use this Aryan mask as both a shield and a sword. She picked up snatches of conversation along the Nazis' dirty dishes and passed the information to Jews in the ghetto. She raided the German warehouse for food and blankets. She smuggled people from the work camp into the forest. And when she was made the housekeeper of a Nazi major, she successfully had hid 12 Jews in the basement of his home until the Germans' defeat. This young woman was determined to deliver her friends from evil. It was as simple and as impossible as that. It's sort of divided into 3 parts. Tears, part 1, I was almost fast enough. Part 2, finding wings. And part 3, where could I come to rest? Tears. There was a bird flushed up from the wheat fields, disappearing in a blur of wings against the sun, and then a gunshot, and it fell to the earth. But it was not a bird. It was not a bird, and it was not in the wheat field, but you can't understand what it was yet. How can I tell you about this war? How can I say these things? If I tell you all at once, first this happened, and then this, and then these people died, and those people lived, and there it was, over, you will not believe me. Sometimes I wonder if these things could have happened. Was it me? Was that girl me? Was it really there? Was I really there? Did I see this happening? In the war, everything was unnatural and unreal. We wore masks and spoke lines that were not our own. This happened to me, and yet I still don't understand how it happened at all. So I must tell you slowly, and with everything fine and clear. I will start in the beginning, because it started long ago. Before time, before there was a Poland, the trees wept as they fell into the Wisla. The great river carried the trees north into the Baltic and mingled their tears with the sea. Centuries passed, and the fishermen on the coast hunted the shoreline for those tears. They had become golden pearls of amber washed smooth by the waves. From Byzantium, from Rome, from the steppe, and from the Holy Land, the merchants came north for the amber that held the sun in its heart. Then the Teutonic knights swept like a storm wave into Poland and took the amber trade prisoner. No one could buy the gems except from these German knights, and Polish smugglers were put to death in the fortress of Malbrück. When the Germans stormed once more into Poland in 1939, we smuggled again. But this time it was not amber. They were tears of another sort. Part 1. I was almost fast enough. Lilac time. Konceres is a small village in eastern Poland. Here, on May Day, 1921, my mother went to the riverbank with her friends. It was dusk, and the breeze carried the scent of lilacs. The call of a cuckoo from the forest made the village girls laugh as they picked their way among the reeds and forgot-me-nots at the water's edge. And the grasses brushed their ankles with dew as they passed. My mother carried a block of wood with her name written on it, Maria Rebes. Also on the block of wood were a stub of candle and a small wreath of flowers. Each of the laughing girls carried a block. Again the cuckoo called from the birch tree while Maria and her friends lit the candles. The smell of the matches and burning wax mingled with the scent of lilac. Clutching their skirts up around their knees, the girls waded into the chilly water to launch their boats. The fleet of candles drifted out into the current, turned and bobbed as though bowing farewell, and floated away. Downriver were the young men, and among them was Got a young architect and chemist who was overseeing the construction of a newly ceramic factory. He stood apart from the other young men on the riverbank, smoking a cigarette and watching as they joked and wrestled in the shallows. Gut did not think at first that he would join the village men in their holiday game. The ancient folk customs of the rural countryside near the Ukrainian area of Poland seemed like relics of a long-ago century. But the twilight was deepening and the laughter rose in excitement as the fleck of candles came there into view, floating beneath the slender green fingers of a willow. The lights were bewitching. Gut tossed a cigarette into the damp grass and walked nearer to the water to watch the May boats drift toward him. Swallows dipped and skimmed over the water and arched away. The men were wading out now, teasing one another over their sweethearts, each one hoping to get the boat with her name on it. Gut bent quickly to unlace his boots and peel off his socks, and then waded into the water with the others, the hems of his city trousers clinging to his legs. "How will you know which is Janka's boat, Tadek?" one man called. "She promised to put only bluebells on it," came a reply over the dark water. "Did you hear that, Marek?" Janka's heart was bluebells. "If you want her, that's the boat to catch." Gut stood with the stream coursing past his legs. In the darkness of the woods behind him, an owl hooted. The hairs on his arms rose as the cold and at the airiness of the fairy lights that moved silently toward him. One boat floated apart from the others, farther out in the current. He felt carefully with his bare feet over the stones on the steam bed and stepped out into the deep. Maria Rebbe's candle sailed straight into his outstretched arms, like a bird settling onto its nest. I like to think of my parents' meeting this way, to think of the sweet and happy years of Poland's independence between the wars. I like to think of the scent of lilacs luring my father into the water in his city clothes, and my mother in her white dress, sitting on the bank upstream with her knees tucked up under her chin, dreaming of the man who would catch her boat. They were married soon after, and I was born on May 5th in 1922, when the lilacs were blooming again. We lived for my first years in Kozinik. Our house sat just above the river, and in the spring of my first year, the sound of the rushing water spoke to me through the open windows. While my mother was busy one morning, I made my baby way out of the house, toddling across the new grass to the water. Our dog, Mazaka, followed. I trotted at the brisk, watching the flashing water as it streamed past. Then Mazaka sank her teeth into my diaper and began tugging backward. Stubbornly, I tried to crawl forward, to stare again into the water, but the dog would not let go. She also could not bark, so this tug-of-war went on for several minutes as I inched my way closer and closer to the edge. Then the silent voice that speaks in mother's ears whispered to my Musa. She looked out the window, and with a shriek she sped outside. "Irene!" Gasping, she snatched me from the water's edge. Mazaka collapsed to the ground, wagging her tail. As Mamusa praised and thanked her. For several days, our heroic dog was the talk of Constance. Neighbors, friends, members of our church. One by one, they stopped by to marvel at little Mazika and stroked my baby face. The rabbi from synagogue came by to bless us both, and our priest took Mamuza's hands in both of his. God has plans for your daughter, Panigwatwana. We must watch to see what little Irina does. And that begins the story of In My Hands, the memories of a Holocaust rescuer. She goes on to do some marvelous, just unthinkable things. I think you will enjoy reading it.